Hello and welcome to this special. The internet is an infinite content generating machine, thanks to which, because of social media, forums, subscriptions, video, newsletters, and everything that we consume, our lives are indeed being taken over or have been taken over already. This also means that our behavior is affected, the way we think, look, spend our time is exploited in many ways, and of course, the theme that we increasingly face now, our very worldviews are polarized, and technology has some role to play in it. So the question now is, what do we do? Is it a matter of self-correction? Are we able to recognize this as a problem and do something about it, or does someone external have to address it, and if so, how? So this subject has been addressed in some detail and eloquence in this book, The Art of Bitfulness, Keeping Calm in the Digital World, which almost seems more like a prayer than a statement. And it's been written by two engineers from IIT Bombay, Nandan, Nilekani and Tanuj, Bhojwani, obviously generations apart. I will not introduce them any further so that I can dive into the subject at hand. Thank you both for joining me. Nandan, let me begin with you. I know most tech billionaires usually look ahead and are able to say which way the world is going or the influence of technology, particularly on society. In this case, you seem to be looking ahead and looking back. And in some ways, maybe some people would say a little too late.
No, I think the timing is right. I think the pandemic brought home to all of us that digital technology was an even more critical part of our lives. And unless we had a way of having some kind of a way of using technology better, a way of being on top of it rather than being overwhelmed by it, it's very important, and this will only get a bigger issue as we go forward, as more and more technologies come which keep you gripping on your device. And we also use this book to point out how we came about to where we are, how the original model of the internet was not based on transactions but on advertising, which then led to creating the attention requirement of the economy and so on, and then the consequence of that. And we tried to be non-judgmental in our book, Govindraj, because a lot of people feel that you should become a monast or a monk and give it up. That's not possible in today's world. And a lot of people feel after they spend 4 hours, browsing some photographs or videos, they feel that they have become weak. The reality is that the technology also encourages you to, engage more and more. So we are trying to be non-judgmental and give a system or set of systems which people can use to continue to get the full value from their digital lives without getting overwhelmed by it.
Right. Tanuj, how did you, come across this, not come across may not be the right word. How did you start looking at the internet? I mean, you're a much younger user and adopter. We have maybe 500 million internet users in this country or a little more. Almost 300 million must have come in the last 4 or 5 years. So our demographics of internet usage in India is quite different. And you clearly belong to the younger consideration set rather than the older one.
I credit the internet for my entire education. It's basically everything I knew. I started programming at the age of about 10, 12. Back then there was nobody coaching class, there was no white hat junior for teaching you this. You just had to go onto the internet and do it yourself. And honestly, it's been lovely. The internet used to be a great space, but it's not anymore, especially because I've grown up with it. The change has been even more drastic for me. I didn't get onto it in the last 5 years. I got onto it 15, 20 years ago. And therefore, something has been irrevocably lost, but it's still not hopeless. We still believe that we can have an internet that is useful, that is benevolent, is kind to all, is common to all, and is not just another space captured by a few players and politicized and all the things you said on the top of your segment. Can we have that space back? Yes, which is why we wrote the book, which is why it's timely, because unlike, say, other crises like the pandemic or climate change, where actions have to be long drawn and multi-year, the internet is a space that can change tomorrow, right? You can announce a concept like the metaverse and suddenly everybody is thinking about flying cars and weddings virtually. So we can reclaim the internet. That's the message of the book.
Right, and that's a good point and a positive way to look at it. Nandan, Tanuj mentioned White Hat Junior. Now, this is a symptom maybe of the problem that we are trying to rush and understand and crack the internet as soon as possible because we feel that this is the way to the jackpot. Education success, life success, and so on. How do we even begin to address something like this?
No, I think there is some merit in that argument because what has happened is, especially after the pandemic, there is a massive digital acceleration worldwide where societies and companies are dramatically transforming their technology landscape to become far more digital and far more agile. And this is creating a boom of demand. And India has emerged as the logical place for that. So, the industry has about 4 million jobs, and it is expected that in the next decade, it will double the number of jobs. In other words, what took 40 years to reach 4 million will now happen in 10 years. So I can understand that young people believe that a tech career is something that they should pursue. And obviously, once you believe that, then there will be vendors who will come across and say, we will teach you those skills. So I think that is there. Our focus is really on how to, what has happened is because of the attention nature of these applications, people spend a lot of time browsing, a lot of time engaging in chit chat, looking at short form videos, and essentially then they feel overwhelmed because they're not able to get their job done. And we just have a simple set of principles by which, using the very same devices you have, you can bring a little more order into your life and then feel you're on top of the situation and become calm.
Right. So many people who interact with you, Nandan, are aware that you brought in this self-discipline in the way you manage devices, including, of course, responding to messages, which can be quite overwhelming. So tell us about, one is how you do it, and that's part of your book as well. And second, when did this realization dawn on you? Because you clearly, obviously, like many of us, have transited from a physical to a digital age.
No, I think very true. I mean, for me, my first device was a desktop, maybe, 30 years back, and then a laptop, maybe 25 years back, or whenever laptops came. And my main instrument of communication was email, and that's how I functioned for a long time. And then, of course, the mobile phone became popular, and then ultimately around 2010, I got my first smartphone, and then of course also got an iPad device. So what I have done is my style is slightly different from Tanuj's because I actually have different physical devices for my different modes. So we talk in the book about 3 modes. One is the create mode, where you need to sit down without interruptions to do thinking work, deep work, writing work. And then we have the curate mode, where you browse and read and maybe watch some interesting shows. And then there is the communicate mode, where you talk to people or send them messages. So I've actually physically divided this because my first device was always a laptop. So laptop continues to be the place where I do all my work. And it's always kept, though it's a laptop and technically can be taken anywhere, I keep it in the same place with a nice lighting and all because it gives me a sense of how I can work there. I use my iPad for browsing and reading. I read a lot of stuff, both physical books and online. And so my online reading is all done on my iPad. And I use my phone for communications, both for voice and messaging. And I don't use any social media apps. I don't use Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or whatever, Facebook Messenger or whatever it is. I do use Twitter, but again, I don't use Twitter in an interactive way. I don't get into arguments and all that. I just use Twitter to communicate articles or things of interest to my followers. So I have a very well-defined discipline towards digital technology, which is why even though I do a large number of things, I never feel overwhelmed by the technology.
Right. Tanuj, one of the things that you talk about in the book is this whole, it's almost like a holy grail. How do you have a zero inbox? And both you and Nandan talk about, obviously addressing the mails of the day and finishing it off rather than allowing it to fester. But that's precisely what many of us, including me, do. So tell us about where you make that start and how do you, to use your own words, go for a nuclear option and why that becomes necessary.
So I think it's this. The best way to think of it is weight, right? Every unanswered email, every unanswered message that you've not actually settled, you've not closed the loop on, you're carrying weight on your shoulders. Now ask, why do you want to carry that weight? So it's that simple. I think you mentioned the nuclear option in the book. There's a line that we've written that I really like. It says, if you are the kind of person who thinks that deleting all your past emails or deleting all your files or deleting pending to-do lists is a very severe thing to do, then you are exactly the person who needs it, right? Because you are the kind of person who likes to carry weight. So my advice to you, if you haven't done an inbox zero today, forgive yourself. Start today, delete everything previous, maybe 1 week previous, the last 1 week is relevant. Everything beyond that, you are going to miss anyway, because you are not going to be able to pick the needle out of the haystack of thousands of unread emails, messages that you have. But going forward, just have a simple algorithm, which is that once and done. You touch it once and take a decision and do it. Including if it says saying no, just say no.
Right.
That's the, if you ask me, that's the formula. Just like have a simple set of rules for what you're going to do. Once you touch it, actually get it done so that you don't look back on it. Never have wait. You will feel freer, calmer, better.
Right, and I'm going to come to issues like privacy, which is a cornerstone in some ways of our interaction with the digital world. Nandan, polarization, and you've touched upon it in the book, is something that we at Boom address as well by fighting misinformation and fake news. Now, is polarization, as you see it, a cause? Is it an outcome? Or is it an unintended consequence of what we've spent or invested in digital infrastructure?
It is definitely an outcome. Whether it is unintended or not, I cannot say. I don't want to attribute motives. But the reality is, it goes back to what we said, that it is, the whole game is the attention economy, right? It's about keeping your attention, because you get your attention, you spend longer time on that particular application or whatever it is. The longer time you can spend, the more ads can be shown to you, because there was no other way of making money except by showing you ads, because there was no transactional ability on the internet for a long time. And therefore, what people also have realized is that if you give things to you that inflame you, that make you angry, you're more likely to be engaged. So I think it's probably inevitable that when you have an attention economy that's trying to keep your attention, and when things that bother you excite you more and you get more engaged, then that kind of content will go up in the system, which is exactly what has happened. And it's also been accompanied by the fact that, at least in the West, there's been a massive collapse of local newspapers. Local newspapers used to rely on classified ads, but the classified ads went away with digital advertising and all these other things that came about. And the local newspaper acted as a community for a small town. And now that went away, and all your information came from some app. And then you got into these bubble chambers where you interact with people like you, and then you become even more polarized. So I think definitely this has played a role in polarization.
And therefore, how do we even begin to address it? Because as you pointed out in the book, the business models of companies that operate on the internet, or particularly the consumer internet, is based on blitzscaling, growing big, drawing capital. Blitzscaling is a term that Peter Thiel has used, growing very fast, attracting capital, growing faster, and obviously bringing in consumers. So everything in the internet world, including the flow of capital, is designed to in some ways polarize us and keep it that way. So how could we even begin to fight this?
Well, actually, blitzscaling was coined by Reid Hoffman in his book, the guy who founder of LinkedIn. And Peter Thiel wrote another book which was similar, called 0 to 1, about how to create monopolies and all that. Well, I think that's what we talk about in the second part of the book, Govind, is about how do we address the underlying architecture of technology so that you have much more interoperable protocols, like we have shown with UPI. And these naturally allow more competitors and more innovation. And having portability is very important. One of the things, for example, in UPI is that I can switch my consumer app and continue to use UPI. I can switch my bank and continue to use UPI. And that keeps everybody on their toes, because they have to keep innovating and providing a better service. Similarly, if in the area of social media and messaging, if you have real interoperability where I could take my profile and my friends list and move to somebody else, then new models will emerge. And then as transactional commerce takes off, like what is happening with UPI in India, then if the revenue model goes to commerce and there's less dependence on this attention stuff, then that's another way to think. Of course, there's other issues about that. Part of the reason for this is that there's no intermediary liability for these social media platforms under the US law, the 1996 Communication Decency Act. So there are other issues that regulators and others are concerned about. We are focused more on how to use technology to make markets more competitive and more innovative and less of a lock-in.
Tanuj, how do you see this challenge of us not allowing technology to lead us down that rabbit hole, literally on a hourly basis?
Look, I think it starts by first of all looking at your own life, and for a lot of us, we believe that in this day and age, how can I not be connected? How can I not be available on WhatsApp? How can I not respond to every email? But maybe 15 short years ago, this was not the way the world worked, and the world still worked, right? So the first thing I would say is that please rid yourself of those false notions. If you do have a kind of environment or a workplace, boss is always on your tail, maybe talk to your colleagues, and then you'll find a lot more people agreeing with you, because this is a problem that we found out uniformly everybody faces. In our conversations, we found nobody who said, no, I am very happy and I don't overuse my phone. As not a single person. That says something in itself. So first of all is rid yourself of the notions. Second is don't try to judge yourself or think that, okay, if I read is better than watching videos, etc. It's simply ask the question, is my attention aligning with my intention? When I am on my device, like Nandan was saying, there are these three modes we think about: create, communicate, curate. When I am on my phone to sit down and create, or on my laptop to sit down and write something, am I actually doing that? Or am I getting distracted by work-like things, such as email, or messing around with like some data, looking at some charts, which is also a form of procrastination and distraction, right? So I would say that the simple objective would be to do this. I think a third thing that we've not noticed is that there's been a low grade because of incoming notifications, because of so many people being at our fingertips, because of so many news sources, information sources being at our fingertips. We have essentially become easily we're easily triggered. Like there's always overwhelm. There's always something that we're falling behind on, even if you just simply stand still. So one of the underlying principles, people ask us, what is the principle in the book? And I think it is choose calm, productivity follows. If you are able to design your information environment such that it is not always coming at you, the very first effect it will have on you is that you are calmer. Once you are calmer, you can take better decisions on what to spend your time on. And you will hopefully spend time on things that are meaningful to you and make meaningful progress in your life, whatever those goals may be. And and that's honestly the only sort of abstract level principles that we can talk about, and the rest comes down to your specific situation.
Right, and Nandan, in an ideal world, we all would be cognizant of our own failings, as it were, but this is not an ideal world. And sometimes gentle intervention, perhaps through the education system for younger people or younger children, could happen so as to, in a way, make them aware of the perils of this internet and digital age. How do you see that?
No, I think that's a great point. First of all, I think we should not flog ourselves saying that we are weak. A lot of people spend 3-4 hours watching some TikTok and then feel that, oh my God, I don't have any willpower. The reality is that TikTok application is designed to keep you engaged for 3-4 hours. So it's not entirely your fault. So we feel that, but I think what you pointed out is very true. I think as people start more and more, as you said, a few 100 million people are using smartphones. The amazing thing is that we don't have any digital hygiene classes or any kind of way to tell them, guys, this is the way to use it. And I think it's definitely required, because if you get a smartphone and all you're doing is getting inflammatory news on WhatsApp or watching cat videos on TikTok, then that's not really the world you should be in. So I think there's a great need for addressing the digital hygiene, and definitely people should do that, and they should use our book as a textbook, I think.
Right. So, one of your initiatives, Diksha, you've talked about touching 3.6 billion learning sessions. Egg Step and Diksha, which is digital education for young
Diksha
children.
is the government's program.
Yeah. Yeah. And so tell us about, is there a role there for, let's say, more media literacy or internet literacy at a younger age?
Well, that's really, it's more to address basic ability of kids to read, write, learn to arithmetic, and so on. So it's more making sure that India has a literate audience, a literate young people, because education is so vital to people's social and economic mobility that's what we're focused on. I'm not sure whether that's the place, but yes, maybe there's a role even when people sell the phones to come out with some kind of guide. And by the way, smartphone manufacturers are trying to do that. They are, for example, giving you your weekly activity. They're giving you tools to shut out bad content. They're giving you tools to limit your usage. So they are doing their own thing. But I think it's not just about what they do, it's about what you do and how you adopt a simple set of principles like we have outlined in the book.
Right. Privacy is an important aspect, and if you can talk about that for a few moments. Now, let me begin with you, Tanuj. So the way we interact with our devices usually involves us giving up a lot of information, and there's nothing new in that. Where are we today in terms of what we've given up? And one, can we take back? Two, how do we be more cognizant about what we're giving up and yet using in a more rational way the power of the internet that we want to use?
All right. So the first thing that you want to make a shift in your mind is that a lot of conversations around privacy are usually framed as binary. So, WhatsApp will no longer have privacy, or Facebook, you don't have privacy, etc. I think that notion itself is what causes a lot of stress and anxiety in people. If you can start thinking about privacy in the way that we used to in the real world, which means that, let's suppose yesterday we had a session at, say IIT Bombay or Ashoka University. The way I interact with my friends is a way different from the way I interact with my professors. And let's say even amongst those, my favorite professor, I will show them a different side of me. So what we used to have almost naturally in the real world is that you would show different aspects of your personality to different people. You're in the office, you're somebody else, you get into the cab, you speak to the cab driver differently, and then you come home and you're a different person. On the internet, all of this has collapsed because these platforms are all big and one large platform. So the identity has collapsed, and you're essentially everything to everyone all the time, which is very hard to do, which is very jarring also. So so privacy is not one binary on or off where all your data is protected. It is boundary management. It is being able to choose or have control over what parts of yourself do you reveal to whom. Now, you said a very interesting thing, which I also hope people understand, that data will always be generated. It is about who can see what part of that data that is privacy, right? And on the internet, if you interact, it will happen. What can you take back? What can you claim? I would say the first thing you have to remember is that not all your life history or all your life data, because the way that people put it, and Facebook has all your data, but data beyond, say, 60 days ago doesn't say anything interesting about you. You're not that same person anymore, right? Your interactions or social communications, let's say messages or whatever, might be very relevant and private even for years later. But in general, what browsing and what these companies collect about you, they also don't want more than 90 days old data, because they know that nothing matters, right? People change, time changes. So how much can you reclaim? Therefore, I said all this to say that you can reclaim a lot, because even if you start today, let's say in 6 months time or whatever, you can have that sense of comfort. In 3 months time, you can have that sense of comfort. So what do you do? Practical advice: use different identities. The way that these people link it all together is using your ID, which might be an email address, might be a phone number, might be whatever. So you can choose what part of you is revealed to whom by choosing which identity or / identifier you share with them, which means, divide and keep a number and an email for just your personal contacts, and it's just for them. It's not given to any corporations or any website, etc. For marketing and places where people will spam you, use burner IDs, use temporary IDs, so that those emails come and you don't even have to look at them. And all of this, by the way, everything I'm saying is in the book. So if you want a more detailed guide. And the other thing that you want to do is all your messages. Just think about what messages you really want to keep, because nowadays everybody offers ephemeral messaging. Because even the messaging companies essentially realize that we can't stop a Pegasus kind of a hack or whatever, where somebody has access to your phone itself. So the options they offer is end-to-end encryption, which means no middle party can read. But the other thing they offer, which is underutilized, is ephemerality, which means that just let all your messages delete in 24 hours. Which of them do you really want to go back to? Let's say with loved ones or whatever. In fact, if you ask me, I would say with your loved ones, you really want to forget, because not always nice things are said. When nice things are said, save those explicitly. But the rest, I think, if you forget, it will be better, so that you can't go back and dwell on bad messages, etc.
Right. Nandan, two questions and the last questions as well. So the first one is, when this book was conceptualized, was it a management book, a technology book, or a spiritual book?
No, that's a great question. Just to give you some background, Govind, my history of book writing. I did two books that were largely big picture policy books, imagining India and then rebooting India with Viral Shah. And, I did want to do a book about all the new things we have done, like India Stack, digital public goods, and so on. But then we realized that, we need to start with something that matters to people. It's all because if you write a book about how big strategy should be done, it's not really relevant to most people. But what is relevant to people is how they can use the technology better. And that's how it began. So we have not thought that we're not doing the second part. I mean, the latter part of the book is all about the collective solutions to this, either whether it's using crypto technology or using India Stack or whatever. So we're trying to combine both the individual response and the collective response. So what are the three things you said?
Business, technology, or spiritual?
Well, it's really I don't know what it is, but it's really a book. Our goal at the end of the day is somebody gets this book, reads it, even adopts a few of the lessons from it. If it makes their digital life more manageable, if they feel less harassed, if they feel less overwhelmed, if they get more time to do other things, then I think we've achieved our objective.
Right. And last question, in a way, a simple or a tough one. To some of our young Gen Z who are, entering, let's say, secondary education, college, full-on internet users, maybe accelerated by COVID. Now, what is your advice to them in a very general sense?
Well, I think they need to they should certainly decompress a bit from this thing. I mean, I think COVID actually forced us to spend even more time on digital platforms because we can't even meet people. I think the time has come back now post-COVID to engage with people, human beings in the real world, interact with them, build empathy with them, build friendships with them, build relationships with them. I think a little more of that is required because, I've seen situations where 4 children go to a party, go to dinner, and they're all on their respective devices, which doesn't make sense. They should actually be talking with each other. So I think we need to encourage just human contact in the post-pandemic era.
Right. Nandan, Nilekani, and Tanuj, Bhojwani, thank you very much for joining me. For those who are watching, this is the book, The Art of Bitfulness, Keeping Calm in the Digital World, a must-read for our times. Thank you both again.
Thank you, Govind. Thanks a lot. Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.